Hello and welcome to Study History with Mr. P. In this video I'm going to look at law enforcement from the period 1900 to the present day. So there have been a number of developments in policing during the 20th century and early 21st century. For example, women became recruited into the police force. This first happened in the 1920s, but women at this point had roles working with women or child criminals or victims of crime. And as the 20th century has progressed, we now see obviously that women or female police officers working much the same way as men. We've also seen police transport change during the 20th century. So in 1909, police bicycles were introduced. Cars then became introduced in the 1930s, and police cars and other vehicles have become more specialist over time. Police training has changed during the 20th century as well. In 1947, for example, a police training college was set up. So recruits are always now trained rather than learning on the job. And in addition, police can train for additional or specialist roles such as pursuit driving. Policing has seen also developments or increased use of science and technology. For example, fingerprinting was first used in 1901. Blood samples can be used today, especially when microscopes are used, and DNA is now used for testing as well. Technology is also a big issue in the development of law enforcement in the present age. So breathalyzers were first introduced in 1962 and police cameras in 1992. And they help police to catch more criminals and act also as a deterrent. Computers have also aided the aspect of law enforcement. The police first used computers in the 1960s. There's now a police national computer system as well as a DNA and fingerprint database. Communications as well. Police forces now work together. So if you think back to the late 1800s, police forces would often refuse to work with each other, whereas now there's a lot of sharing of information, which is aided by the police computer database. In addition, police personnel carry personal radios and two-way radios to improve communication. There's also the technology allows forensic science to be used to search crime scenes, to use DNA, fingerprints and so on to match them to national databases. However, we also need to be mindful that advances in technology have helped the police, but they also help criminals too. So whilst police have more motor transport to use, so do criminals, for example. For law enforcement during this time period as well, we've seen increased specialisation of police roles. So Fraud Squad, for example, which focuses on finance and business crimes, was set up in 1946. There's specialist drug trade units which deal with drug trafficking into the UK. And within individual police forces, they deal with drug dealers and try to disrupt the drugs trade. There's also dog handling units where dogs work with their handlers who are police officers that are trained to sniff out drugs, find explosives, catch criminals and even find missing people. And there's special branch which deals with threats to national security and terrorism, and they work with MI5. Crime prevention, not a new concept, and in fact, in previous time periods it was relied upon for collective responsibility perhaps to prevent crime. There's now a number of roles within the police force that aid crime prevention. So PCSOs, police community support officers, for example, focus on crime prevention. So stopping antisocial behaviour and factors that lead to crime and fear of crime. Neighbourhood Watch, introduced during the 20th century, sees local communities of people raising awareness about crime and encouraging neighbours to keep an eye out for crime. CCTV and video surveillance allow people to be seen, and if people know they're being seen, they're perhaps less likely to commit crime. And biometric screening is where unique body characteristics like fingerprinting or eye patterns can be used to restrict access to things like data, buildings and so on, therefore making things more secure, which in itself helps to prevent crime. So we can see law enforcement then is aided by a number of developing factors during the 20th century. Developments in policing itself, the use of technology, increasing specialisation of police roles, and the role of crime prevention itself.